Hi, my name is Dr. Fred Sylvester from New Hanover Chiropractic, and welcome to today's Health Talk. We have one of our senior clinicians here, Dr. Mark Pearson, and he's here to share us with, what chiropractic looks like with, sports performance, cycling. You're an avid cyclist. I know you've treated many cyclists over the years and over your course of your career. So, what do you have?
Well, I've found that the chiropractic treatment is very effective for the injuries that an athlete can obtain through their practice of sports.
Sure. So when you're talking about like injury, you're talking about repetitive trauma injuries, or even, we say even more traumatic injuries. You and I both have experienced personally, bike injuries and bike accidents and that type of stuff. When we look at it from a performance standpoint, or even from a recovery standpoint, what would you say?
I would say that the chiropractic care is definitely a modality for improving the speed of recovery. When the muscles are recovering from the activity that you have been performing, the chiropractic adjustments are helpful in relieving the stresses that have been put into the body.
So when we think about our traditional overuse syndromes, cyclists, will get, knee discomforts and that type of stuff from going through their cadences for multiple hours at a time and that type of thing. How does that all happen? And is it just more of an overactivation of certain structures, underactivation of other structures? And when we start to think about how chiropractic care affects that?
Well, in cycling, it's certainly an effect on overuse of certain muscles, muscle groups, especially in the legs and the lower extremities altogether.
Yeah. So it's interesting. I know when I cycle, I have the capabilities of measuring how much effort I put in from power, but they also now have capabilities to measure how much pressure you're putting on right pedal versus left pedal. And I find it interesting. Being routinely treated, I will say that I typically see between 49 to 51% equality between pedal pressure. I have other colleagues who have not been under chiropractic care or those types of modalities, and it's often 45, 55, 40, 60 type of conversation. So this is something that I think that you might want to expand upon.
Yeah, that definitely does not surprise me, because the chiropractic adjustments will help to, how should I put this, level you and balance you. I've had many adjustments over my lifetime and have found that after the adjustment, I feel more grounded and able to handle the stresses that I've put into my body.
Right. And I think when we think about what chiropractic is, chiropractic really comes down to, we like to think about, taking pressure off the nerves and that type of stuff, but really it's about motion and balance, right?
I agree with that wholeheartedly. I mean, that's what we do all the time.
Right.
We're always trying to be in balance as we get through the day, and we're always moving.
Right. So one of the things I think of is that if we are out of balance, and you may want to expand on this as well, being out of balance, being out of alignment, increases different demands on different tissues, right? And so when we look at power versus fatigue, and we start to think about how those kind of interplay, I always think of it like a seesaw. They're inversely proportional, right?
Right.
So if power is really high, fatigue is really low,
right.
Okay? And then as you continue to do something over and over and over at this point, power drops, fatigue goes up. I've always been under the impression that fatigue is usually the prelude to injury.
Definitely is. Just the fact that it's an example of it is definitely something that occurs, and the tired body is more susceptible to injury.
Sure.
And it occurs as a cyclist through that way.
Right. So the mechanism of just over-endurance or overactivity, can increase that fatigue factor. And I think you and I probably take this for granted a lot. But if you think about it, if you're out there and you're cycling and you're doing a cadence of 90, that's 90 revolutions per minute. And if you're doing that for an hour or 2 or 3 or whatever you're doing, whatever length you're doing, I mean, those numbers are astronomical when you start thinking about it. And I think we minimize it by saying, okay, we've only went out for 20 minutes, or we only went out on the bike for 10 miles. But the amount of revolutions that are taking place in that are significantly cumulative, and it's amazing how the body can adapt to that.
Yes.
Occasionally, and sometimes occasionally fail.
Yes, the body is an amazing thing, and it always adapts. And we're going through adaptation every second of our lives. And as a cyclist, I know that my first ride of the season on the roads is always an interesting experience.
Sure.
As you know, the sensations and the use of the muscles are different than when you're on your trainer.
Yeah, for sure. Balance.
Balance, again, comes into play, and the strength component is also interesting when you get done from the ride, how you realize, oh my goodness, that was a more strenuous or a harder ride than I thought.
Sure. So in your professional career, you've treated many athletes, you've read a lot of research. How do those two interact with each other? How do they kind of dovetail one another? What have you seen? What's your take-home message with athletic performance increasing, whether it's on the cycle or the run, versus how chiropractic care can be influential into that?
Well, I think the chiropractic care is number one influential to the recovery of an athlete, as it speeds up the whole system or all the systems in the body to allow the body to reach its, how shall I put it, its
maximal improvement, maximal optimal function.
Yeah, optimal function is a good way.
Yeah,
definitely.
So when we think of all that, your take-home message through your, we'll say your long career at this point would be what to the average athlete at this point? Because I have a lot of respect for what you do. At your age, you're still very, very active, very, very competitive, and and you've been doing this a long time. Chiro, cycling, all that type of stuff, and you're still here to be the test of time. What's your secret?
What's my secret? My secret is to keep moving and exercising.
Yeah.
And I try to eat right, but like everybody, I go off the wagon once in a while and eat something that's not appropriate. But the adjustments allow the body to adapt, and that's the whole thing about life. Is adaptation through the years to a point that you're at where you want to be.
Yeah, for sure. Well, good day and good health.